Greetings, my fellow hunters, and welcome back again. Today, we're going to be doing a special little thing where we're going to be talking about things to request. Number 2 things Americans say. So, my hunters, we'll be beginning with this little one that I kind of find funny with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and trust me, I really don't like those two. How many Elon Musks and Jeff Bezos you all have? How many Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos you all have? Elon Musk is not even American. He is now. America allowed him to succeed. You just jealous. He is traveling to space rather than your commie gov doing it. Okay. Let me just clarify that my government isn't commie, or I doubt any other government is communist these days. Well, maybe Cuba, but besides that, most governments in the world are social democratic or somewhat center-right leaning, with a few odd exceptions. It's because America gave him so much tax exemptions and basically funding for his projects that he's able to do such ridiculous things like create a space programs. So yes, America allowed him to do it, but they had to finance him, and he didn't do it all on his own. So I wouldn't call that an American success, going away on your own. Okay, this one's a bit of a doozy, and trust me, it's one that you need to be sitting down because it's going to make you laugh at how ignorant he is about other countries, and how predictable it is at this point. They don't have freedom of speech in England. They don't have freedom of speech in England. Maybe this will show these American-hating liberals why the First Amendment is important. Oh boy, where do I start with this one? Okay, first off, England has freedom of speech. It does not have the freedom of speech similar to the United States, but it still has freedom of speech nonetheless. I have rights to say what I want, but at the same time, I have not the right to offend someone. So, or basically insult them because of their things they cannot control. Or I cannot insult them based on their religious belief. I can criticize it, but not insult them. Second of all, does this guy understand that the Liberal Party is the center-right-wing party, and that the Labour Party are technically the left-wing party? And they are not against their right of speech. They just think that you shouldn't have the right to insult people for their religious belief. Criticize, yes, but insult, no. There's a fine line, and basically, this guy just proves that he doesn't understand about other countries and how their freedom of speech rules work. Because, it's a different country. America doesn't do it exactly as well. Really wish he would realize that. Okay, this one's going to be a bit of a long one, but trust me, it's going to be headache-inducing. Nonetheless, it's also going to be frustrating because he says so much, but at the same time means so little because it makes no blimmin' sense. Jesus, this is going to be quite a long one, so sit down and enjoy yourselves. You don't mind the fact that your fundamental liberties have all been taken. Why are some Americans so patriotic? Do they? We believe our country is far better. In the UK and other Western countries, I don't get why he says that considering the fact that the UK is in Western Europe. Oh, never mind. Yes, the quality of life is almost as good as it's here, but we have one thing that you don't. We have liberty. I'm going to save this until the end because I have a lot to unpack here. Americans are free in ways that nobody else in the world is. We are independent and do not rely on the state to take care of us. We have free speech. Real free speech, not European-style free speech, where you can't say anything that hurts other people's feelings. We have the right to keep and bear arms, which Europeans seem terrified of, but we hold dear. It means that the ultimate check on government power resides in our hands. In our courts, unlike any others, we have the right to remain silent. You are not required to aid in an investigation into you, and silence is not seen as evidence of guilt. We have all 4 boxes of liberty in America: the soap box, the ballot box, the jury box, and the cartridge box. In Europe, I guess the elections are mostly free. Not that it makes much of a difference when you have choice between different authoritarian parties that usually want the same thing. And I think most European countries have jury trials. I'm pretty sure France has the presumption of guilt instead of innocence like in America. And I vaguely remember hearing that's the same in Germany. But free speech? Yeah, you don't have that. And guns? Ha! Nowhere comes close. But you get gifts from the state, and you seem to be content with bread and citrus. to the point that you don't mind the fact that your fundamental liberties have all been taken. Oh man, where to start with this one? Okay, first up, we do have liberties. I have my freedom of speech, my right to protest, my right to basically vote out anything. I have a right. I do have some gun rights. In fact, I can technically own a firearm, but I don't see it as a necessary right. And first of all, yes, while the state does provide a lot of things, we do also work, you know. We're not heavily dependent on the state, but the state does help us get out of situations, like giving homeless people shelter or housing in order to live in and hopefully get a job. Not that you would know that because America's great, apparently. Or the fact is, we also have a soap box, a ballot box, and a jury box. I don't have a cartridge box because I don't frankly own a firearm, but still, it doesn't mean I can't still protest in different ways. We are allowed to protest. Have you seen any of the protests in the last few years? Or maybe not, because you live in a bubble and you refuse to see other points of views except yourself, and you think that America is so great that you don't realize the irony of how it has a horrible healthcare system, a horrible public transport system, horrible state welfare, and everything in between you can imagine. It's horrible, and if I lived there, I wouldn't survive very long. And plus, I get the beneficial of good healthcare. So yeah, if you want to say something, do have the experience of looking into other countries instead of just basically blatantly thinking. And by the way, we don't have jury trials. Most European countries have judge trials, but we do have jury trials for the more high-profile case, but overall it's just basically by judge. It's people like these that give me the headache for no reasons, because they're so lacking of understanding of other cultures and countries. It's just so, I wouldn't say deliciously irony, but headache-inducing irony, because they just don't listen. Okay, here we have one who has a complete lack of understanding on how politics works outside the US, and considering he doesn't understand what France is and its political alignment. So yeah, let's see his nimrodity. Is that a word? I'll say it's a word, yeah. Wow, a country that actually has its heads together by passing vaccine mandate laws. I applaud the French. Why don't you live in France since you know so much about the delusions of grandeur that is communism? Why don't you live there since you know so much about the delusions of grandeur that is communism? You have been outside of the country much, have you? I don't know if he meant you haven't been outside the country much, but I'm not going to digress. That will be for later. LOL, you have no freaking idea what communism is, other than it's a bad name I call stuff I don't like. I never realized how much someone can embarrass themselves with no more than 2 sentences. I'm confused. What does communism have to do with France? I don't understand your second sentence. You have been outside of the country much, have you? That literally makes no sense. Please elaborate on both. Thanks. Is there really much for me to say, considering this is just the American education system at its finest, not understanding the differences of countries' political ideas, that France is not communist, it is a center right-wing party country. So yeah, I wouldn't call France communism because that's both disingenuous and just plain fast wrong. So yeah, moving on. Okay. For this guy, he's just either completely being a troll or he's 100% genuine. And sometimes with these sorts of people, I can't tell the difference between the two because they're just so cringeworthy. Unfortunately, this isn't a Reddit read of the worst, cringiest moments, but just things Americans have said that just feel like it should be on the cringe page. But I digress. Let's get on with this one. Fricking Europeans, free men don't ask for permission. Can you get out in your window and shoot it at your bar? God, no. We go to shooting ranges like civilized people. LMFAO. I have a beautiful Novaski here. I can get out at my window and dump as many rounds as I want. Civilized people. Fricking Europeans. That's the difference from the US and you guys. Free men don't ask permission. I hope you understand our position. Good luck with the rabbit hunt. As I said at the beginning, I couldn't tell if this guy was being serious or just a troll, and frankly, I don't want to think about it because otherwise I might get infected. So we'll be moving on. I feel like this guy shows how lacking the American education system is over at the States. I wonder how they managed to have actually functioning adults there. The US has done more for the world than every country in the EU combined. LOL, the US has done more for the world than every country in the EU combined. And I cite the fact that the USA has a GDP of $4 trillion higher than the entire EU. Hashtag #1, baby. Wow, where's the irony in this one, guys and ladies, or in everything in between? The arrogance on display is so nauseating. The fact is, I don't want to spend on this any more than I have to, because otherwise I might catch something. So we'll be moving on very quickly. Okay, this one will really make you really wonder how Americans are able to have such an education system this poor. Oh my god, this isn't even funny. Americans would never do this. European colonial history in 6 words. Is that yours? It's mine now. Americans would never do this. We save nations, not destroy them. Well, somebody got into the propaganda pretty quickly, wouldn't you say so, guys and gals and everything in between? Seriously, if this guy doesn't know about his own country's history and what they've done, I feel sorry for the American education system. Okay, this guy is another example of people who have not left their own country and understand how other countries work, so yeah, I'll cut it short. Hope you enjoyed this one. Lack of basic freedoms. That's freaking absurd! My baby was in ICU for 3 weeks, didn't cost me a penny. Just goes to show how the difference between the UK and the US. Right. Aside from the exorbitant tax rates and lacks of basic freedoms, don't you need to apply for a permit to get a TV in the UK? Okay, let me give you a little bit of a lesson, any Americans who are watching. A. America pays more taxes if you account for multiples such as sales tax, state tax, federal tax, and every other tax that you've got. On average, Americans pay more than any other in Europe. Second of all, even in the UK, I have freedoms. I have freedom of speech. I have freedom to criticize the government. I have every other blimmin' freedom you have. It's just that we don't take it to the extremes that some Americans do. And third of all, the TV is for the BBC. And no, not that one. What do you think? Getting the dirty mind? It's just basically the British Broadcasting for the entire country, which is owned and run by the government and is funded by the taxpayers. So technically, the BBC is a public broadcasting system, nothing else. Next time you criticize something, do a little bit of your own research on your own country before you criticize others, because it can go a mile away and it prevents you from looking like the incompetent dimwit. Once again, here we are with, again, the lack of self-irony would be the good word to use, because this guy just makes a bold statement without backing up the facts. Acknowledging that the US is the greatest country on Earth. Acknowledging that the US is the greatest country on Earth, if you had to choose a country/region/cities overseas to retire to, what would it be? Without acknowledging your statement about the US, go to Sweden or Denmark. Whoever this gentleman is, or lady, or non-binary person this is, I commend this person for her, or they, or his words. Simply magnificent. Short, sweet, and to the point. Yes, if I had to choose between that, I'd go to Sweden over the US any day. Better healthcare and much nicer people. Alright, we have here a person who doesn't understand how other countries' medical procedures works, and that other countries outside the US actually have social health care, which is actually more affordable for the other people who are not multimillionaires or billionaires. You have to pay if you want medical care. Where does one get a transplant for free? You act like kidneys, as well as having someone who is capable of even doing the procedure, are just free and easy to come by indulgences. Many countries with decent healthcare systems, like Canada, UK, Australia, etc., you can't go to any of those countries and get a cost-free transplant. That's not the norm. These are very, very expensive procedures, and we can't exactly grow organs. Oh boy, his ignorance is on display. Believe it or not, because we have social health care, it is publicly available. If you, say, go to, I don't know, Germany and you need to acquire a transplant, I believe it is covered, and for as long as you've got travel insurance, I think it is covered nonetheless. It won't cost you much. And the fact is that, yes, those sorts of procedures are the norm. And you just gotta love the red herring, basically the dodge realizing that his argument is basically flawed when he had to exactly say, we can't grow organs. Yeah, this is a dodge if I've ever seen one. He knew he was wrong, so he tried to make up poor excuses about, ew, but we can't grow organs. That's not perfectly possible. I know we can't. You don't have to bring that up, but the procedures are basically free. Yeah, shocker, I know. And here we are, another American with such an ignorant ego that I'm surprised he doesn't have a planet of his own. Get the joke. The rest of the world didn't become free till we reformed half the world in our image. I love how Americans just straight up appropriate some really broad and general themes and say they are pure American stories. It's like the freedom thing. The US is certainly not the only free country in the world, so I brag about it. Because the rest of the world didn't become free till we reformed half the world in our image after World War II. After we brought down the European fascism and Japanese imperialism, and put democracies in their place, and only survived with American money and opposition to communism. OMG, the American school system really failed an entire generation of people, didn't it? I love it, the fact that the guy was being actually correct in how the American school system has failed the entire generations. And the second of all, in how this guy just doesn't understand that the Americans didn't enter the Second World War till late in the game. And the fact is, they only joined after Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Second of all, Europe wasn't entirely under dictatorship. It was basically three countries, four. No, wait, three, yes, three. That would be Germany, Italy, and Spain, and Portugal as well. But they fell after the Allies won. And honestly, opposition to communism, that only happened because the Americans agreed to split Eastern and Western Europe. So all in all, it was the Americans' fault that we basically had a divide in Europe in the first place. And just a final note, the communists helped you in the Second World War. A convenient fact that most Americans like to forget that, the communists helped against, the bad guys. And there we have it, my hunters. Another video about, I really should have thought this would be more cringe, but honestly just the silliness of Americans sometimes and how they're just so woefully ignorant on a lot of subjects. Now, I've got to ask you, is there anything any American said to you that is silly? Let me know in the comments below. It's always helpful. Plus, if you enjoyed this, give me a like, sub, and follow me on my Twitter. And if you're feeling just a little bit charitable, join my Patreon. You get little few goodies and early access to my videos. And you get special tags on my Discord server. So please, if you want to support this little hunter with his future, that will be most appreciated. Until then, my hunters, I bid you adieu, and may the good blood guide your way.